this is an issue of religious freedom. There's no question about it. Two things came to mind this morning as I thought about coming here. One, I had just seen a rerun of Nancy Pelosi stating we have to read the bill to find out what's in the bill. We now have read the bill. We don't like it.
Amen.
And the other thing I thought of is we're standing here on this spot where in 1858, as Chris already pointed out, Lincoln and Douglas debated, and the core problem was kind of traceable back to, well, it's traceable back to a lot of things. It's called inhumanity to humans, as slavery. But the Supreme Court in Dred Scott said that slaves were property, not people, and that as a slave, even if you got into a free state and your master even took you to a free state, you were still a slave, and you couldn't claim to be a freeman. We fought a civil war over that, 3 constitutional amendments, and I think we've got that worked out. We have a little problem with Roe v. Wade because the Supreme Court got it wrong again when they said even when you're conceived, you're not a person within the meaning of the Constitution, and that I think they got it wrong, and I think history and science will bear that out. In fact, as I was talking to local OBGYN doctor, Dr. Martin, I asked him,
yes, sir.
I think I know the answer to this question, doctor, but when does the DNA show up? He says when the cells start to divide at the very beginning.
Beautiful.
So each of us had our own DNA at the very beginning. We just kept it with us.
Here.
And I think some people may have trouble understanding the position of the Catholic Church and the liberty issue here. We look upon that first division of cells as when that spark of life, the soul, is put in there by God, and nobody's supposed to kill them. Now there is a little tiny exception, and it's if the mother's life is at risk, and the only way to save it is the mother has to make a choice to have an abortion, and I don't like to use that word, but that's what it is. But there's part of that thinking too in the Catholic Church is there's an unintended consequence, and that would be the end of the child's life, and the intended consequence is preserving the mother's life, and that's about it. And that basically is what we have for as we wander the streets. That's really the law of self-defense. You can preserve your own life if you have to take another person's life, but your intention cannot be to take the other person's life, only to defend your own. So the Supreme Court seemed to have got that wrong, in my view. But this issue about we are looking at this as a human being, and I again asked Dr. Martin, I said, precisely how does this contraceptive thing work? It's supposed to prevent conception, but sometimes it doesn't. And it thins out the uterine wall, and when that happens, the fertilized egg, the embryo, us, back when we were conceived, doesn't attach to the wall and basically goes out and starves to death, because that's how we started out, you know, getting 3 square meals a day on our mother's uterine wall. So we starve to death if this pill works that way. And the abortion pill is clearly, I asked him about that, and is clearly that is designed to chemically pull the, I would describe the new life off the uterine wall and send it out again into the cruel world with nothing to eat, no place to go. The Romans and the Greeks practiced what was called infanticide. They waited until you were born to stick you out in the middle of nowhere and let you starve to death. We are proceeding ahead of that. We do it beforehand. And that's part of their Catholic religion, and with this new bill, this HHS mandate, they're asking us to do what we cannot do. Now, part of it is some people are suggesting that, well, it's just an insurance company. Well, that doesn't make any sense. We pay for the insurance, and we're asking our insurance company to give money to doctors and pharmacies so that they can engage in acts which we cannot engage in. In the law, you cannot do through an agent what you can't do yourself. I can't send somebody out to kill somebody if I can't kill them myself. It doesn't make me, free from the crime of murder if I hire somebody to kill somebody. And I make the analogy, there's little difference between that and what the government is asking us to do through insurance companies. The government wouldn't ask the Catholic Church to, buy a box of birth control pills and have them at the confessional, handing them out. And there's very little difference between that, in my view, and asking the Catholic Church to go out and pay for insurance so that we can instead go to the pharmacy or the doctor to accomplish the same result. So the legal issue here, I think it's a constitutional issue, and Chris already mentioned it. I'll reread it. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And it goes on with free speech and the other article, the other qualities of the First Amendment. And it's also important to note there is nothing in the First Amendment, and let me back up a little bit. Once upon a time I was a judge before I retired. I had a law student, a senior law student, it was a clerk to me. We had a discussion one day about, and I don't remember what got it going, but the phrase separation of church and state came up. And I said, there is no such phrase in the U.S. Constitution. Oh, yes, there is, she said. Oh, no, there isn't. Oh, yes, there is. Well, it's a simple way to... Judge Mahoney once upon a time told me when I was a lawyer, don't argue about what the statute says, pull it out and read it.
There you go.
So out came the U.S. Constitution. I handed her the Constitution, and she looked, and she was quite surprised. There is no phrase close to, akin to separation of church and state. It ain't in there. So, again, Father Barr's comments, I think, about the federal regulations say it all. They're trying to tell us to do what we shouldn't do, what we morally cannot do, and hopefully either the U.S. Supreme Court or the Congress straightens this out, because I don't think Ms. Sebelius is going to change her opinion. Thank you very much.
God bless you, Chuck.